Most people in this city know one rule: never get involved with the Kim family. The Korean crime syndicate doesn't leave witnesses. Doesn't forget debts. Doesn't forgive those who interfere with their business. The smart ones cross the street when they see their black cars coming. The smart ones pretend not to hear when someone whispers their name. I wasn't smart that rainy Tuesday afternoon. I was just delivering noodles when I saw him. Tiny, frozen in terror as the delivery truck barreled down the flooded street. Spider-Man backpack. Trembling lip. 5 years old and completely alone in the path of 3 tons of metal with failing brakes. I didn't think. I dropped everything. Food containers exploded across the pavement as I lunged, grabbed him, rolled us both to safety as the truck roared past, missing us by inches. Just instinct. Just humanity. Then I heard the screech of tires. Saw the black sedan surrounding us. Watched men in suits with hard eyes running toward us, guns barely concealed beneath expensive jackets. The boy clutched my jacket, face buried against my neck. "Thank you," he whispered. 2 whispered words. Nothing special, except they were. Because Jin-woo Kim hadn't spoken a single word since watching his mother die 3 months earlier. Not to doctors. Not to therapists. Not even to his father, Sungmin Kim, the most feared crime lord in the city. The man now walking toward us through the rain, his face a mask of shock and calculation. The man whose eyes never left mine as his son clung to me. The man who said 6 words that rewrote my entire future. Find her address. Bring her to me. I've been running ever since. Changing apartments. Switching jobs. But Sungmin Kim's reach extends everywhere. His cars follow me to nursing classes. His men watch my building. His offers arrive daily. Astronomical sums to become his son's caretaker, to live in his mansion, to give his traumatized child the comfort he found in my arms for those few desperate minutes. This isn't gratitude. This isn't a job opportunity. This is obsession. My son needs you, he tells me, voice cold as winter, eyes burning with something I can't name. And what Jin-woo needs, I take. They say fate has a cruel sense of humor. One moment of courage, one child saved. And now I belong to the most dangerous man in the city. At least, that's what he believes, but what happens when belief turns into ownership, and mercy becomes obsession? If you can feel the rain, the fear, and the pull already wrapping around her world, hit subscribe now and comment where you are watching from. Because this is only where the storm begins. 3 days after saving Jin-woo Kim from certain death, I found myself staring at an envelope that had been slid under my apartment door. No postmark. No name. Just cream-colored stationery that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Inside, a check with more zeros than I'd ever seen in my life, and a business card. Black, with an embossed silver symbol. No name, just a phone number. I ripped the check into pieces and flushed it down the toilet. The next day, I was fired from the delivery service. Restructuring, they called it. The day after that, my landlord informed me the building had been sold and all tenants needed to vacate within 30 days. When I asked who bought it, he wouldn't meet my eyes. Message received, Mr. Kim. I was halfway through a nursing lecture when I felt it, that prickling awareness of being watched. In the back row of the auditorium sat a man in a black suit, expressionless, eyes trained on me like I was a particularly interesting science experiment. When class ended, he stood, but didn't approach. Just watched as I gathered my books, as I walked to the bus stop, as I pretended my heart wasn't trying to punch through my ribcage. The sleek black Bentley pulled alongside the curb before my bus arrived. The back window lowered silently. Get in, Ms. Taylor. Sungmin Kim. In person. Voice like polished granite. I clutched my backpack tighter. No, thank you. That wasn't a request. I'm aware. Still declining. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or calculation. My son asked about you this morning. My breath caught. He's speaking now. Only about you. The car door opened. 10 minutes of your time. That's all I'm asking. I knew I shouldn't. Knew nothing good could come from entering that car. But curiosity, about Jean Wu, about the man who controlled half the city's underworld, pushed me forward. The interior smelled like leather and something distinctly masculine. Sung Min Kim sat with perfect posture, not a wrinkle in his tailored suit, not a hair out of place. Up close, he was younger than I'd expected. Early 40s, maybe. Sharp cheekbones. Calculating eyes. Handsome in a way that felt dangerous. I don't respond well to threats, Mr. Kim. I haven't threatened you. I laughed. You got me fired. You're forcing me out of my apartment. I'm offering you better options. He handed me another envelope. A position in my household. Caretaker for Jean Wu. Private quarters. Full benefits. Salary generous enough to complete your nursing degree without working elsewhere. I don't want to work for you. Yet my son responds to you. He leaned forward slightly. Do you understand how significant that is? 3 months of silence. The best child psychologists in the country. Nothing. Then you, a random delivery girl, and he speaks. The way he said random delivery girl made my skin crawl. Like I was an unexpected variable in an equation. A glitch in his perfectly ordered world. I'm sorry about your son. About his mother. But I can't. My wife died in a car accident, he interrupted, voice suddenly flat. Jean Wu was in the back seat. He saw everything. Hasn't spoken since. Barely eats. Barely sleeps. Until you. Something inside me ached for that little boy. For the trauma locked inside his tiny body. But the cold calculation in his father's eyes kept my walls firmly up. I need to get to my next class. Sung Min studied me, then nodded once. Consider my offer. The position remains open. His eyes hardened slightly. But understand this, Ms. Taylor. My patience is not infinite. And what Jean Wu needs, I will provide, one way or another. I got out of the car feeling like I just had a conversation with a predator who was deciding whether to pounce now or later. That night, my mother called. She'd been offered an unexpected position at a care facility 3 states away. Better pay. Better hours. Housing included. She was taking my teenage brother with her. It's such a blessing, Zoe. Out of nowhere. I didn't even apply. My blood ran cold. Another piece moved on Kim's chessboard. My family, safely out of his reach, or safely out of the crossfire. When I returned to my apartment, a small box waited outside my door. Inside, a child's drawing. Stick figures. One tall, one short, one medium. The smallest held the medium one's hand. Family written in wobbly English letters. Jean Wu's artwork. A silent plea from a child who'd found his voice only long enough to thank me. I should have thrown it away. Should have packed my things and followed my mother across state lines. Instead, I found myself calling the number on that black business card. His voice answered on the first ring, like he'd been waiting. You've made a wise decision, Ms. Taylor. I hadn't agreed to anything yet. But somehow, we both knew I would. The Kim estate sprawled across the top of the city's most exclusive hill, hidden behind walls and gates and security that would make Fort Knox envious. Traditional Korean architecture blended with modern luxury. Guards patrolled the perimeter. Cameras tracked every movement. A gilded cage masquerading as paradise. Jean Wu was waiting when I arrived, small face pressed against a window. When he saw me, his eyes widened. He didn't smile, I would learn later that he rarely did, but something in his rigid posture softened. You brought your things. Sung Min appeared beside me, eyeing my single suitcase. Just essentials. This is temporary. The corner of his mouth twitched. Of course. A stern-faced housekeeper named Mrs. Park showed me to my quarters. A guest suite larger than my entire apartment, overlooking gardens that seemed to stretch for acres. Everything screamed money. Old money. The kind of wealth that doesn't need to announce itself. Mr. Kim requests your presence at dinner, Mrs. Park informed me. 7 o'clock. Jin-woo eats earlier, but tonight is an exception. I spent the afternoon settling in, trying to ignore the feeling of being watched. When I ventured into the hallway, a security guard materialized at the end of the corridor. Not threatening. Just present. A reminder that this wasn't a normal household with normal boundaries. At precisely 6:55, Mrs. Park appeared to escort me to dinner. The dining room could have seated 20 comfortably. Instead, just 3 places were set, Sung-min at the head, Jin-woo to his right, an empty chair to his left. Jin-woo's eyes lit up when I entered. He didn't speak, but his small hand lifted in a wave. Good evening, Ms. Taylor. Sung-min stood until I was seated. Old world manners from a new world criminal. I trust your accommodations are satisfactory. They're fine. I smiled at Jin-woo. Hello again, buddy. Silence. But his eyes never left my face, drinking me in like he was afraid I might disappear. Dinner was elaborate, course after course of traditional Korean dishes I couldn't name. Sung-min asked pointed questions about my background, my education, my family. Gathering intelligence while appearing conversational. I answered minimally, focusing instead on Jin-woo, who ate more in that meal than he apparently had in days. He likes you, Sung-min observed as the child picked at a dish he'd previously refused. That's obvious. Children are good judges of character. His eyebrow arched slightly. Are you suggesting I'm not? I'm suggesting that Jin-woo and I connected through a traumatic experience. That creates a bond. It doesn't mean I belong in your household permanently. Yet here you are. I looked directly at him. Because you manipulated the circumstances until I had no choice. Jin-woo's head snapped up at my tone. Sung-min's expression remained neutral, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. You had choices, Ms. Taylor. You still do. Do I? Really? The staring contest that followed was interrupted by a small voice, so small I almost missed it. Stay. Jin-woo, looking at his plate, not at either of us. Please. 2 words. Barely audible. But they might as well have been a gunshot for the impact they had on the room. Sung-min's breath caught. His hand tightened on his chopsticks until his knuckles whitened. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost its sharp edge. You see. He needs you. Something in my chest ached at the raw plea in those 2 syllables. How could I walk away from a child so broken that speaking required this much courage? I'll stay, I said quietly. For now. For him. Sung-min nodded once, satisfaction evident in the set of his shoulders. He'd won this round, and he knew it. What I didn't realize then was that in the battle between Sung-min Kim's will and my freedom, Jin-woo's healing heart would become both the battlefield and the prize. Days turned into weeks. Jin-woo and I established a routine. Mornings in the garden, where he would sometimes whisper single words about plants or insects. Afternoons reading books or drawing pictures. He rarely spoke more than 2 or 3 words at a time, and never to anyone but me, but each syllable felt like victory. Sung-min watched from a distance, appearing at unexpected moments, observing our interactions with an intensity that made my skin prickle. He was always polite, always controlled, but I never forgot what he was capable of. You're good with him, he remarked one evening as I tucked Jin-woo into bed. Patient. Nursing training. I smoothed the boy's hair. We learn to meet people where they are, not where we want them to be. Something unreadable crossed his face. His mother was patient too. It was the first time he'd mentioned her directly to me. What was she like? Sung Min's jaw tightened. Kind. Stubborn. Believed there was good in everyone. A ghost of a smile. Even me. The vulnerability vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Jinwoo starts school next week. A private academy. You'll accompany him. Is that safe? I blurted before thinking. His eyes narrowed. You think I would risk my son's safety? I think your profession creates risks most children don't face. For a moment, I thought I'd crossed a line. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed. A short, genuine sound that transformed his face. You're either very brave or very foolish to speak to me that way, Miss Taylor. Probably both, I admitted. My enemies know Jinwoo is off limits, he said, serious again. But yes, security precautions are in place. The school is aware. And you, he paused, studying me, you will have additional protection whenever you leave these grounds. I don't need bodyguards. It's not a request. The familiar refrain, delivered with absolute certainty. Jinwoo's attachment to you makes you valuable. Valuable things in my world require protection. There it was again, that unsettling sense of being categorized as an asset. A possession. A thing rather than a person. I'm not one of your possessions, Mr. Kim. No, he agreed, eyes intense. You're something far more important. The conversation haunted me for days. Not just his words, but the moment of vulnerability when he spoke of Jinwoo's mother. The unexpected laugh that humanized him briefly. The way he looked at me, not with the cold calculation I'd come to expect, but with something warmer, more complicated. I told myself it didn't matter. I was here for Jinwoo. Nothing more. But the line between captor and employer, between obligation and choice, was already beginning to blur. Jinwoo's first day at school revealed the full extent of Sungmin's influence. The headmistress herself greeted us, overly solicitous. Teachers hovered, their smiles too bright, too nervous. And in the parking lot, in classrooms adjacent to Jinwoo's, in the cafeteria, men in suits. Always watching. Always present. Mr. Kim values his son's education greatly, the headmistress told me, voice pitched low. We're honored by his generous support of our institution. Translation. Sungmin owned this place either through legitimate funding or intimidation. Probably both. Jinwoo clung to my hand, eyes wide with anxiety as children streamed around us. Scared, he whispered, the word meant only for me. I knelt to his level. I know, buddy. New places are scary. But I'll be right outside your classroom all day. And look, I pointed to a small boy arranging dinosaur toys on a table, he has the same T-Rex you love. Jinwoo studied the boy, then the dinosaurs, his grip on my hand loosening slightly. Okay, he finally whispered, the bravest word I'd ever heard. I stayed at the school all day, as promised. Sat outside his classroom, ignored the curious stares from teachers, the watchful eyes of Sungmin's men. When the final bell rang, Jinwoo emerged clutching a drawing, himself holding hands with a stick figure that was clearly me. For you, he said, the first words he'd spoken since morning. My heart cracked open a little wider. Sungmin was waiting when we returned to the estate, his usual impassive mask softened by genuine concern. How was it? He asked Jinwoo directly, crouching to the boy's level. Silence. Jinwoo looked at his shoes. He did great, I answered when it became clear Jinwoo wouldn't. Participated in group activities. Ate his lunch. Made a friend in the dinosaur corner. Sungmin's eyes met mine over his son's head, gratitude evident in their depths. Without breaking eye contact with me, he placed a gentle hand on Jinwoo's shoulder. I'm proud of you, he said. Jinwoo didn't respond verbally, but he leaned slightly into his father's touch, the first time I'd seen him initiate contact with anyone other than me. That night, Sungmin invited me to join him for a drink after Jinwoo was asleep. Against my better judgment, I accepted. We sat in his study, all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books in multiple languages. "You've accomplished in weeks what specialists couldn't in months," he said, handing me a glass of something amber that burned pleasantly going down. "I didn't do anything special. I was just there when he needed someone. You underestimate yourself." He studied me over the rim of his glass. "Why nursing?" The abrupt change of subject startled me. "I like helping people. There are easier ways to help people. Not the kind of help that matters." I set my glass down. "Why am I here, Mr. Kim?" "Really? There must be professional caretakers with more experience. People from your world who wouldn't ask questions about your business." He was quiet for a long moment, firelight casting shadows across his face. When he spoke, his voice had lost its usual sharp edge. "My son watches people. Studies them. Like me." A small smile. "He saw something in you that day. Something I haven't seen him respond to since his mother died." "What?" "Kindness without agenda." He looked directly at me. "Do you know how rare that is in my world, Ms. Taylor? People who act without calculating the return. People who run toward danger instead of away from it." I didn't know how to respond to that. "Jin-woo needs that in his life," he continued. "I need that in his life. Someone who sees him as a child, not as the son of Sung Min Kim. Someone who isn't afraid of me." "I am afraid of you," I admitted. To my surprise, he laughed, that same genuine sound from days earlier. "No. You're cautious. There's a difference." He leaned forward. "Fear paralyzes. You saved my son. You challenged me to my face. You've adapted to this household without compromising who you are." His eyes held mine. "That's not fear, Ms. Taylor. That's strength." The compliment warmed me in places I didn't want to acknowledge. "I should check on Jin-woo." "Of course." He stood when I did, those impeccable manners again. "One more thing. I've arranged for you to continue your nursing classes. A car will take you on the days Jin-woo is at school. Your tuition has been covered for the remainder of your program." I stiffened. "I didn't ask for that. Consider it compensation for uprooting your life." His expression brooked no argument. "My son needs you present and focused, not exhausted from juggling school and financial stress." I wanted to refuse. To maintain that last boundary between employment and ownership. But the practical part of me, the part that had worked 3 jobs to afford tuition and still fallen short, couldn't form the words. "Thank you," I said instead, the words feeling like surrender. His smile suggested he knew exactly what the concession cost me. "Good night, Ms. Taylor." That night, I checked on Jin-woo one last time before bed. He was sleeping peacefully, clutching the stuffed elephant I'd given him his first week here. In sleep, the tension left his small face. He looked like any 5-year-old, unburdened by trauma or expectation. I brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, an unexpected wave of protectiveness washing over me. This wasn't just a job anymore. This child, with his whispered words and solemn eyes, had wormed his way into my heart. And that was dangerous. Because loving Jin-woo meant I couldn't walk away, not from him, and not from his father, whose world grew less terrifying and more complex with each passing day. The warning came 3 weeks later. I was helping Jin-woo with an art project, newspapers spread across the kitchen table, paint smeared on both our hands. Mrs. Park entered, her usually composed face tight with worry. "Ms. Taylor," she said, "Mr. Kim requests your presence in his study." Immediately. Jin-woo's head snapped up, sensing the tension. "It's okay, buddy," I assured him, wiping paint from my hands. "Keep working on your masterpiece. I'll be right back." Sung Min wasn't alone in his study. 2 men in suits stood near the window, their expressions grim. On the desk lay photographs, surveillance images of me and Jin Woo at the school, at the park, walking the grounds of the estate. There's been a threat, Sung Min said without preamble. Against Jin Woo. And you. My stomach dropped. What kind of threat? He hesitated, glancing at the security men, then back to me. The Chung family has been displeased with certain business decisions I've made recently. They're looking for leverage. And they think Jin Woo and I are leverage. Yes. The bluntness of his response chilled me. What does that mean for us? It means increased security. No more school for Jin Woo, temporarily. No more nursing classes for you. For how long? Until I resolve the situation. Translation. Until he eliminated the threat. I didn't want to know what that entailed. Jin Woo will be disappointed about school. He's just starting to adjust. Sung Min's expression softened slightly. His safety comes first. Yours too. The genuine concern in his voice caught me off guard. I'm not worried about me. I am. His tone left no room for argument. The security team will brief you on new protocols. Until further notice, neither you nor Jin Woo leaves these grounds without my explicit permission and full protective detail. I should have been afraid. Should have been angry at being dragged into his dangerous world. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. I'll keep him safe, Mr. Kim. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or respect. I know you will, Ms. Taylor. He paused. Zoe. My name on his lips felt unexpectedly intimate. We should tell Jin Woo together, I said. About school. He'll take it better coming from both of us. Sung Min nodded, dismissing the security men with a gesture. As we walked back to the kitchen, he spoke quietly. You've changed him, you know. In ways I didn't think possible. He's a resilient kid. Not just Jin Woo. His eyes met mine briefly. You've changed this household. Changed me. Before I could respond, we reached the kitchen. Jin Woo looked up, paint smeared across his cheek, eyes brightening at the sight of both of us together. Daddy, look. He held up his artwork, a riot of colors surrounding three distinct figures. Family. The same word from his earlier drawing. The same three figures. But this time, unmistakably, they were me, Jin Woo, and Sung Min. Sung Min's composure cracked visibly. He reached for the painting with uncharacteristically unsteady hands. It's beautiful, Jin Woo. His voice rough with emotion. Beautiful. Over the boy's head, his eyes found mine, vulnerable, questioning, hopeful. I looked away first, heart pounding with emotions I wasn't ready to name. The threat transformed life at the Kim estate. Guards doubled. Jin Woo's tutors came to the house instead of him attending school. I taught him nursing basics to keep his mind occupied, how to take a pulse, how to wrap a bandage, simple things that made him feel helpful and important. Sung Min was often absent, handling whatever business the threat entailed. When he was home, he spent every free moment with Jin Woo. Reading stories. Practicing Korean vocabulary. Sometimes just sitting quietly while Jin Woo drew or built with blocks. I tried to give them space during these times, but Jin Woo always insisted I stay. Family together, he would say, one of his longest and most frequent phrases now. Each time, Sung Min's eyes would find mine, that same question in their depths. Each time, I pretended not to notice, focusing instead on Jin Woo, on the safety of being just his caretaker, nothing more. But the lines were blurring. Had been blurring since the beginning. The attack came at dusk, a month into our lockdown. I was reading to Jin Woo in the garden, his favorite spot, despite the security concerns. The first indication something was wrong was the sudden silence. No birds. No insects. Just the oppressive quiet before violence. Then shouting. Gunfire. The garden wall exploding in a shower of stone and dust. Jin Woo screamed, the first full-volume sound I'd heard him make since I'd known him. I grabbed him, diving behind a stone bench as bullets peppered the ground where we'd been sitting seconds before. "Close your eyes," I ordered, covering his body with mine. "Keep them closed. I've got you." More gunfire. Men shouting in Korean and English. The crack of breaking glass from the main house. Through the chaos, a single voice rose above the rest. Sung Min, roaring Jinwoo's name with a desperation that chilled me to the bone. "Here!" I screamed. "Garden! We need help!" Footsteps pounded toward us. I braced myself, unsure if it was rescue or danger approaching. Then Sung Min appeared, gun in hand, face transformed by a fury that made him almost unrecognizable. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, eyes scanning us frantically. "Jinwoo." "We're okay," I assured him, though my voice shook. Scared, but unhurt. Relief flooded his face, quickly replaced by deadly resolve. "Stay down. My men are securing the perimeter." More gunfire, closer now. Jinwoo whimpered against my chest. "We need better cover," I said, eyeing the distance to the house. "The bench won't stop bullets." Sung Min assessed the situation with the cold efficiency of a man accustomed to violence. "On my signal, run for the east entrance. I'll cover you. I can't carry him that far that fast." "You don't have to." He holstered his gun and reached for Jinwoo. "I'll take him. You stay directly behind me." Jinwoo transferred his death grip from me to his father without hesitation. Sung Min's arm wrapped around him protectively, his body angled to shield the child from any possible angle of fire. "Ready?" he asked me. I nodded, heart hammering. "Now." We ran, Sung Min leading, me following close behind. Bullets kicked up dirt at our heels. Someone shouted in Korean. A warning or a threat, I couldn't tell. Then we were through the door, Sung Min kicking it shut behind us, security men rushing to bolt it. The house was in chaos. Broken glass. Overturned furniture. Blood on the marble floor where someone had fallen. "Safe room," Sung Min ordered, already moving. "Now." We followed him down hallways I'd never seen, through a hidden door, down stairs that seemed to descend forever. At the bottom waited a bunker, sparse but secure. Steel doors. Concrete walls. Surveillance monitors showing every angle of the estate. "You'll be safe here," Sung Min said, setting Jinwoo down gently. "Both of you. You're leaving." I couldn't keep the alarm from my voice. "I need to end this." His eyes were cold again, all trace of the father gone, replaced by the crime lord. "Tonight." Jinwoo clutched his father's sleeve. "No go," he pleaded, tears streaming. "Stay." Sung Min knelt to his son's level. "I have to protect you," he said, voice gentler than I'd ever heard it. "You and Zoe. Do you understand?" Jinwoo shook his head stubbornly. "I'll come back," Sung Min promised. "And when I do, no one will ever threaten our family again." Our family. The words hung in the air between us as his eyes met mine over Jinwoo's head. "Be careful," I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Always." He rose, caressed Jinwoo's hair once more, then turned to leave. "Sung Min," I called after him, using his first name for the first time. He paused, looking back. "We'll be waiting for you." Something flashed in his eyes, hope, determination, a promise. Then he was gone, the heavy door sealing behind him, leaving Jinwoo and me alone in the silence of the bunker. Jinwoo cried himself to sleep in my arms, exhausted from fear and adrenaline. I laid him on the small cot, covering him with a blanket, then turned my attention to the surveillance monitors. The feeds showed devastation. Parts of the garden wall collapsed. Windows shattered. Bodies, I tried not to look too closely, being removed by Sung Min's men. And at the center of it all, Sung Min himself, issuing orders, his face a mask of cold fury. I watched him move through the chaos with deadly efficiency. This was the man the city feared. The crime lord. The ruthless businessman. So different from the father who read stories to Jin Woo, who looked at me with questions in his eyes, who spoke of family as if it might include me. Hours passed. Jin Woo slept soundly, mercifully unaware of the violence that had nearly claimed him. I dozed fitfully in a chair beside his cot, jerking awake at every sound from beyond the bunker door. It was nearly dawn when the locks disengaged. I tensed, positioning myself between the door and Jin Woo's sleeping form. Sung Min entered alone, and the sight of him stole my breath. Blood spattered his once immaculate suit. A cut bisected his eyebrow, still losing. His knuckles were raw, bruised. But his eyes, they were clear. Resolute. The eyes of a man who had faced hell and returned victorious. "It's over," he said simply. Relief crashed through me like a wave. The Chung family? No longer a concern. I didn't ask what that meant. Didn't want to know. "Jin Woo?" he asked, eyes moving to the sleeping child. Finally resting. He was so scared. Sung Min moved closer, stopping an arm's length away. "And you?" "I'm okay." A half-truth. I was physically unhurt, but the night had shaken me in ways I couldn't articulate. He saw through me, as he always did. "You're trembling." "Adrenaline," I explained. "It's normal after trauma. It'll pass." "Zoe." Just my name, but the way he said it, softly, intimately, broke something in me. Tears I'd been holding back for Jin Woo's sake spilled over. And then, without warning, Sung Min closed the distance between us. His arms came around me, strong and sure. I should have pulled away. Should have maintained the boundaries I'd fought so hard to preserve. Instead, I let myself lean into him, let his strength support me as mine finally faltered. "I thought we would die," I whispered against his chest. "I thought Jin Woo would." "Never," he said fiercely. "I would burn this city to the ground before I let anyone harm him. Or you." I pulled back slightly to look at him. "Why me? Why did you really bring me here?" "The truth, Sung Min." His hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing away a tear. "Because my son saw in you what I was afraid to see in anyone after his mother died. Goodness. Strength. The capacity to love without conditions." His eyes held mine, more vulnerable than I'd ever seen them. "Because I watched you save my son that day in the rain, and something in me recognized you. Not as an asset. Not as leverage. As essential." The confession hung between us, raw and honest in a way I'd never expected from this controlled, calculated man. "I don't belong in your world," I whispered. "You belong wherever you choose to be," he countered. "I've spent months trying to control that choice. Trying to keep you here through obligation, through manipulation, through fear." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "I was wrong." "Then what are you saying?" "I'm saying when this door opens, you're free to walk away. Take Jin Woo to school. Finish your nursing degree. Build the life you wanted before you saved a boy from a truck." He swallowed visibly. "Or stay. Not because I demand it. Not because Jin Woo needs you. But because you choose to." In the small cot across the room, Jin Woo stirred, murmuring in his sleep. We both glanced his way, this child who had brought us together, whose healing had somehow begun to heal us both. "He called us family," I said quietly. "In his drawing. Is that what you want? To be his family?" I met his gaze steadily. "Just his?" Understanding dawned in his eyes, followed by a hope so naked it transformed his face. "No," he said softly. "Not just his." The door to the bunker stood closed but unlocked. Beyond it, a choice. Freedom. Normalcy. The life I'd planned before fate put a child in danger and a crime lord in my path. Or this. This complicated, dangerous, unexpected family that had formed in the crucible of trauma and healing. This man who had moved from captor to protector to something I was only now allowing myself to name. Ask me, I said, voice steady despite the thundering of my heart. Not as Sung-min Kim, crime lord. As Jin-woo's father. As the man who promises safety but can't guarantee it. Ask me to stay. His hands framed my face, his eyes never leaving mine. Stay, Zoe Taylor. Choose us. Choose me. Not because I command it, but because there's a place in this family that only you can fill. In the quiet of the bunker, with dawn breaking in the world above us, I made my choice. Not out of obligation. Not out of fear. But because sometimes family finds you in the most unexpected places, and sometimes saving a life means finding your own. Yes, I whispered. I'll stay. His smile, rare, genuine, transformative, was my answer. That, and the small voice from across the room, sleepy but certain. Family, Jin-woo said, watching us with solemn eyes. Together. Together. Against a city that would never understand. Against a world that would always present dangers. Against all logic and reason and conventional wisdom. But with this child who had found his voice because I found him first. With this man who had learned to ask instead of demand, to love instead of possess. With this family that began with a near tragedy in the rain and continued now, imperfect and unexpected and entirely ours. But what happens when belief turns into ownership? And mercy becomes obsession? If you can feel the rain, the fear, and the pull already wrapping around her world, hit subscribe now and comment where you are watching from. Because this is only where the storm begins.